Whispers of strength, the hunter, his daughter, and their rising village. I remember that night clearly, even though it was many years ago. The air was warm, but the breeze from the river dam was cool. Frogs croaked loudly by the water, making it hard to think, but I was wide awake. The moon hung high in the sky, casting strange shadows on the village huts, and everything felt eerie. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Kofi. He had been through so much since his wife died. I worried about him all the time. Then, I heard them. Quiet whispers outside his hut. At first, I thought it was just the wind rustling the trees, but when I listened more carefully, I realized they were voices, women's voices. I crept closer to the window, trying to hear what they were saying. My heart began to pound. "We must take the baby girl," one of the women said in a harsh tone. "He can't possibly care for her alone." It was Nana Akua speaking. I recognized her voice immediately. She was the village elder, and she often led the women when decisions needed to be made. My heart sank. I knew what they were planning. They wanted to take Oma, Kofi's baby girl. Ever since his wife had passed away giving birth, the village women thought Kofi couldn't manage on his own. They believed he was too heartbroken, too tired, and too lost in grief. But they didn't know Kofi like I did. They didn't see how much he loved Oma, how he held her in his arms every night, even when he was so tired that he could barely stand. He was doing his best, and I knew he would fight to keep her, no matter what. The women kept whispering outside, and I knew they would come for Oma soon. I had to act. I couldn't let them take her. She was all Kofi had left of his wife, and losing her would break him completely. I stepped away from the window and hurried to Kofi's hut. My hands shook as I knocked on the door, praying he would wake up in time. When he opened the door, his face was pale, and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. "Kofi," I whispered, "the women are outside. They want to take Oma." He looked at me, his face filled with fear. "Take her." "Why?" "They think you can take care of her," I said softly. "But I know you can. You've been doing it. Oma needs you." Without a word, he grabbed Oma, who was asleep in her small cloth cradle, and held her close. We both knew what was about to happen. The women would come knocking any moment, and Kofi would have to stand strong. I was ready to stand by his side. We weren't going to let them take Oma, no matter what. Kofi was beside himself with grief when Oma was born. His wife, my dear friend Adwa, passed away before she could even hold her baby. The news of her death spread quickly through the village, and with it came the whispers. Kofi was left alone to raise Oma, and people weren't sure he could handle it. The village was skeptical, full of quiet doubts and judgmental looks. "He is just a hunter," they said. "What does he know about raising a child?" The words hurt me, even though they weren't aimed at me. Kofi was not just a hunter to me. He was my brother, and I knew he had a heart full of love for Oma. Yes, he was grieving, and yes, he was lost at first, but I knew he had the strength to care for his daughter. The villagers didn't see that. They only saw a man who had lost his wife and was struggling to keep it together. At first, Kofi didn't know where to start. He was used to hunting in the forest, tracking wild animals, and being strong. But taking care of a newborn, that was new to him, and it scared him. I remember the first night he came to me, his face pale with worry. "I don't know what to do," he admitted, holding Oma in his arms, her tiny face peeking out from the cloth wrapped around her. "She cries all the time, and I can't make her stop." I smiled softly, knowing this was just the beginning of fatherhood. "Kofi, it's normal. Babies cry. But I'll help you. You're not alone." I already had 2 daughters, so I knew a thing or two about babies. I didn't hesitate to show him what I knew. I taught him how to hold Oma properly, cradling her close so she felt safe. I showed him how to feed her, how to burp her gently after she ate, and how to rock her when she was upset. At first, Kofi was clumsy, unsure of himself. But he learned quickly, and soon enough, I saw a change in him. He would bring Oma everywhere with him, even when he went into the village to trade his hunting catches. Some of the villagers would shake their heads, thinking it wasn't right for a man to carry a baby around. But Kofi didn't care. He was proud of Oma. He loved her more than anything, and you could see it in his eyes every time he looked at her. Still, the whispers didn't stop. The women in the village would gather around their cooking fires, talking in low voices about Kofi's ability to care for a child on his own. He needs a woman to help him, they said. A man can't do it by himself. But Kofi wasn't interested in remarrying. His heart still belonged to Adwoa, and he wasn't ready to move on. I knew that, and I respected it. But not everyone did. The village women thought they knew better. They thought Oma would be better off with one of them or perhaps in another family. It angered me to hear them talk like that. They didn't see the love Kofi had for his daughter. They only saw what they wanted to see: his struggles, his mistakes, his moments of weakness. But Kofi didn't give up. He kept caring for Oma the best way he knew how. Every day, he got better at it. He learned her rhythms, when she liked to sleep, what made her smile, and how to calm her down when she was upset. It wasn't easy, but he was determined. Sometimes, when I would visit, I would see him sitting outside his hut with Oma on his lap, her tiny fingers gripping his hand. He would look at her with such tenderness, and I knew that no matter what the villagers said, Kofi was doing just fine. He didn't need anyone else to raise his daughter. He just needed time and support. The village women didn't understand that. They only saw a man who was struggling, and they thought the solution was to take Oma away. But I knew better. I had watched Kofi grow into his role as a father. I saw his determination and the deep love he had for his daughter. He wasn't perfect, but no parent is. What mattered was that he cared, and he was willing to learn. The villagers weren't kind to Kofi and Oma. Every time I walked through the village, I heard the whispers and saw the way people looked at him. They thought it was strange for a man to take care of a baby all by himself. They laughed when they saw Kofi struggling, especially when it came to things the women in the village thought only they could do. I remember the first time I saw him trying to change Oma's diaper. He was outside his hut, sitting on a small stool, with Oma lying on a mat in front of him. His hands were clumsy, and he fumbled with the cloth, trying to wrap it around her. A few of the women passing by stopped and snickered. "Look at him," one of them said, shaking her head. "He doesn't even know how to change a diaper. Poor Oma." They laughed as if it was some big joke. But it wasn't funny to me. Kofi's face turned red with embarrassment, but he didn't say anything. He just kept going, focused on what he was doing, even though his hands were shaking. I wanted to step in and help him, but I knew Kofi. He was proud, and he wanted to figure it out on his own. Over time, Kofi got better at it. He learned quickly, but that didn't stop the ridicule. There were times when Oma wouldn't stop crying, and Kofi would walk around the village with her, bouncing her in his arms, trying to soothe her. Instead of offering help, some of the villagers just watched and gossiped. "That child cries too much," they said. "Maybe if her mother were here, she would be quieter." It hurt to hear them say that, and I knew it hurt Kofi too. But he never let it show. He just kept walking, trying to calm Oma, even though his face looked tired and worn out. Kofi was never one to complain or ask for help. He kept everything inside and kept pushing forward. What surprised me most was when Kofi learned to braid Oma's hair. It was something Adwoa used to do, and I thought it would be too painful for him to even try. But one day, I saw him sitting in front of their hut, Oma in his lap, and he was carefully parting her hair with his fingers, just like Adwa used to. It wasn't perfect, but he had learned. He had watched Adwa do it so many times before, and now, he was doing it for Oma. The villagers didn't stop laughing, though. Some of the men even teased him. Kofi's becoming a woman, they said, mocking the way he spent so much time with Oma. Maybe he should leave the hunting and stick to babysitting. But Kofi didn't respond. He never lashed out, even though I could see the hurt in his eyes. He let them laugh. He let them talk. But every day, he worked harder, proving to them, and to himself, that he could raise Oma on his own. His hunting skills provided enough for them to survive, though it wasn't easy. Kofi would go out early in the morning, leaving Oma with me or one of the other women he trusted, and he wouldn't return until late in the evening, carrying whatever he had caught that day. Some days were better than others, but every coin he earned felt like a small victory for him. He saved everything he could for Oma's future, determined to give her a better life than what people expected. There were moments when Kofi looked exhausted, like the weight of everything was too much for him to carry. But he never gave up. His love for Oma kept him going, and even though the village laughed at him, they couldn't deny the bond between father and daughter. It was clear in the way Oma looked at him, with trust and love, and the way Kofi would smile at her, even on the hardest days. Despite the ridicule, Kofi's resilience never faded. He was determined to prove everyone wrong, to show them that a father could raise his daughter, even in a village that doubted him at every turn. And slowly, quietly, he was doing just that. Oma grew up into a smart and curious girl, the kind who was always asking questions and seeking to understand the world around her. From the time she was very little, it was clear she had something special about her. She had an energy that was hard to miss, a mind that was always working. While other children played in the dirt or ran around the village, Oma would sit quietly with one of the old books I had in my hut, flipping through the pages, eager to know more. At first, I thought it was just a phase. But it wasn't. She loved reading more than anything else. It didn't matter that the books were old or that the pages were torn in some places. Oma would sit for hours with them, her face serious as she tried to read every word. She would come to me with the book in her hands, her face lit up with excitement. "Auntie," she would ask, her voice full of curiosity, "what does this word mean?" I would smile and explain, happy to see her so interested. Kofi tried his best to answer her questions too, but sometimes Oma's questions were too much for him. He wasn't used to this kind of thing. He was a hunter, after all. But that never stopped him from trying. Every time Oma asked something, Kofi would sit down with her, his brow furrowed as he thought about the best way to explain. One day, the village school teacher noticed Oma's brilliance. She saw how quick Oma was to learn new things and how she was always ahead of the other children in class. That's when the teacher decided to give Oma extra lessons after school, helping her with subjects that weren't even taught in the village. The teacher didn't have to do this, but she saw something in Oma that made her want to help. "Oma is special," the teacher said to me one afternoon. "She has a bright future ahead of her, but she will need more than what this village can offer." Kofi knew this too. As Oma grew older and reached high school, it became even more clear that she was something special. She was always at the top of her class, and the teachers would often praise her for her hard work and sharp mind. Oma's dream was to go to university, to continue learning and maybe even become a doctor. Kofi was proud of her, but there was a problem that weighed heavily on him. Kofi didn't have enough money to pay for Oma's final exams. He had worked so hard over the years to provide for her, hunting in the forest from sunrise to sunset, but the money he made was never enough. He had saved as much as he could, putting away coins for Oma's future, but it still wasn't enough. The exams were expensive, and without them, Oma couldn't move forward. All of Kofi's hard work, all of Omar's brilliance, could be wasted if she couldn't sit for those exams. When Kofi told me, I could see the worry in his eyes. He didn't want Omar to know how bad things were, but I knew he was struggling. I knew how much this meant to him. I decided to do what I could. I chipped in what little I had, as did a few others who believed in Omar. We all gave what we could, but it still wasn't enough. It seemed like no matter how hard we tried, the money was always just out of reach. I remember sitting with Kofi one evening, both of us silent as we thought about what to do. Omar's future depended on this, and it felt like we were running out of time. Kofi didn't say much, but I knew he was hurting. He had done everything he could as a father, raising Omar on his own despite all the challenges, despite the ridicule and doubt from the villagers. Now, when it seemed like Omar was on the verge of achieving something great, this obstacle stood in the way. But Kofi wasn't one to give up easily. I could see it in his eyes, the same determination that had carried him through all those difficult years. He wouldn't let Omar's dreams slip away, not without a fight. He would find a way, just like he always had. As for Omar, she continued to work hard, unaware of the financial troubles that lay ahead. She had faith in her father, and she knew he would do whatever it took to help her succeed. And deep down, I believed that too. I believed that somehow, even if the odds were against us, Omar's brilliance wouldn't be wasted. Just days before Omar's exam fees were due, the pressure on Kofi was greater than ever. The village was buzzing with gossip, and everyone seemed to have an opinion about what he should do. Some said he should give up and accept that Omar's dreams were too big for a simple hunter to fulfill. Others felt sorry for him but offered little help. But Kofi, as always, remained silent and focused. He didn't complain. Instead, he made up his mind to go on one last hunting trip, hoping to catch something big. I saw him that morning before he left. He looked tired, as if the weight of the world was on his shoulders, but there was a determination in his eyes that couldn't be ignored. He didn't say much, just told me he'd be back soon. I wished him luck, though I could feel the uncertainty in my own voice. We all knew the chances of catching something big in such a short time were slim. But if anyone could do it, it was Kofi. The days that followed felt endless. I knew Kofi was in the forest, deep in the thick woods where only the bravest hunters dared to go. He needed something extraordinary, and I prayed that the forest would reward his hard work. Every evening, I watched the path leading back to the village, waiting for Kofi to return, hoping to see him walking toward us with something that could change everything. Then, on the third day, Kofi came back. But he wasn't alone. On his back was a massive antelope, the biggest I had ever seen in my life. The whole village gathered around in amazement, unable to believe their eyes. Some of the older hunters shook their heads, muttering that they had never seen such a catch in all their years. Kofi had done it. He didn't say much as he unloaded the antelope, but the look on his face said it all. This wasn't just about the money, it was about proving to himself and everyone else that he could do it, that he would always find a way to take care of Omar. He took the antelope to the market the next day and sold it for a good price, enough to cover Omar's exam fees and more. It was more than just luck, it was Kofi's hard work, determination, and love for his daughter. The entire village was in awe. Even those who had doubted Kofi's ability to raise Omar on his own couldn't deny his dedication now. Whispers of admiration replaced the old ridicule. People marveled at how far Kofi was willing to go for his daughter, and slowly, respect replaced the pity and doubt that had once surrounded him. With the money in hand, Kofi paid for Omar's exams, and she sat for them confidently. Omar had worked so hard for this moment, and it showed. The exams were tough, but Omar was tougher. She wasn't just the best student in the village or the state, she was the best in the entire country. News of her success spread quickly, and suddenly, everyone was talking about our little Oma. She had done the impossible. Then came the biggest surprise of all. Word of Oma's brilliance reached people far beyond our village. A few weeks after the exam results were announced, Kofi received a letter. I was there when he opened it, and I never forget the look on his face as he read the words aloud. Oma had been awarded a full scholarship by UNESCO to study abroad. Our little Oma, who had grown up in this small village, was going to see the world. The excitement was overwhelming. The entire village came together to celebrate her achievement. It wasn't just Oma's success, it felt like a victory for all of us. The same people who had once laughed at Kofi were now praising him, calling him a hero, a father like no other. And Oma, our Oma, was the pride of the village, a shining example of what hard work and perseverance could achieve.